Who was that, yay? Catherine?
My favorite.
My pages are all out of order now. Okay. Gonna go past all of this. Tra-la-la, here we go. All right. So I'm going to introduce you to a gal named Ruth, different than the Ruth you thought you knew from the Bible. First of all, the background of Moab is quite brazen, ostentatious. Many of you probably already know this. But just as a reminder for those of you do, built on incest between Lot, while he was passed out drunk, and his daughter who took advantage of him. So it's an incestuous blight on the map. The Jews would have considered Moab to be like big no-no territory. I mean, literally built on incest. From the ancient Moabite stone, now this you may not have already heard. The ancient Moabite stone, there was a leader, King Chemosh, and he channeled or divined or something. I don't really get it. It's weird when you look at what the historical documentation of these kind of ecstasy moments of communication with the pagan gods that he had. But in any case, he was personally, or claimed to be personally in touch with the Moabite god and all these different things. And he knew that the Moabite god could only be appeased through child sacrifice. Now, in 2 Kings 3:27, we actually read about how King Mesha sacrificed his son to this god, to this god Chemosh. And he was channeling things into him directly. This is documented in the ancient Mesha's Moabite stone. King Mesha actually had his Chemosh Mesha Moabite stone document. It's like a cuneiform tablet, except it's giant. And he went on to talk about all of the reasons why he did this, but in addition to this, there was a long history also recorded through some of these forms of documentation that talked about the other people of this city, Moab, whose leaders had long since been sacrificing their children for the sake of the blessing on the town and so on. So not only is it built on incest, I mean, that's how it begins. Then you have child sacrifice, which, again, the biggest affront to Judaism would have been child sacrifice. So that's part of the reason why, if you look at number 3, Deuteronomy 23:3-6, prohibits Moabites from intermingling with Israelites at all. And this is an explanation for why Ruth and Boaz... Oh, I'm sorry. There is an explanation for why Ruth and Boaz are allowed to associate. That is addressed in the book. There's a loophole that they found in the Jewish law that allowed it because she wasn't a man and there wasn't, it wasn't a direct thing. It wasn't about, the offspring of so-and-so. If you read about it in the book, by the way, the book I'm teaching from is volume 1 of The Mystery of Jesus. But there's a reason why they were not prohibited from marrying. But you can imagine, regardless of the fact if they found a loophole, can you imagine if somebody came to you and said, "Mom, I'm getting married. I met a man. He's from this incestuous town, built on this guy who got drunk and then, slept with his daughter. But he doesn't have anything to do with that. Oh, and the king there, he sacrifices children, but she's got to overlook that because this guy's really nice." Probably not going to happen. Not going to get your blessing, right? All right, so this is the child sacrificing, incestuous religion climate that Ruth grew up in. And yet she had her mother-in-law Naomi, and she bravely said, "Thy people shall be thy people, and thy God my God," right? All right, so how many of you guys know where I'm going with this Boaz and Ruth Jesus revelation picture? Yeah? A few of you? Good. Yay, I'm excited. I'm in good company. Boaz had every reason to distrust Ruth. Yet, watch what he does. He blesses her to gather freely from his harvest. He tells her to enjoy the company of other Israelite women at the site. He informs her that he has already instructed the men that she is to be left alone. Listen, women did not get that kind of respect back then. They didn't. They flat out didn't. And if a man like Boaz said, "You men leave her alone," it would have been more than just a little bit of jive teasing. Yeah. Right? They would have assumed and expected all kinds of craziness. And he says to her, "It hath been fully shewed me all that thou hast done unto my mother-in-law," and calls her a virtuous woman. So first I want to ask you, does this remind you of anyone? Sometimes reading an excerpt from a book does actually help, not just with my nerves, although that's a big part of it too, but it helps with the people who can follow along. They learn visually. So I'm gonna read an excerpt here. Excerpt from The Mystery of Jesus, Volume 1. Think about this for a moment. Boaz did not say that she could only have food from his land if she was willing to pay interest, earn her keep, work extra hours, pay him any personal favors, or any other requirement. He didn't ask her about her former husband, her past in Moab, whether she plans to corrupt his other field maidens with pagan ideas, whether her lifestyle was such that she needed to be under supervision while she drank from the same vessels as the men, what hair-raising temple activities that she may have participated in back home. I can tell you this, the Ruth that you see in the Christian coloring books is not the Ruth that would have appeared in Boaz town. I mean, maybe they would have had her dressed more appropriately by then, but when she first became associated with the Jewish lifestyle, when they were on her territory, she would have looked a little bit, I don't know if you've seen the old movie Sodom and Gomorrah, the old one from like the 50s. She would have looked more like that. If she believes in tithing, okay, I'm about to get sarcastic here. If you read my books, you know I get really sarcastic very often. If she believes in tithing, if she attends confession regularly, whether she has memorized her denomination's fundamental statements of faith, whether she had ever smoked a cigarette, if she felt tempted to smoke a cigarette, how she feels about dyeing eggs on Easter, how long she's been a member of her local church and whether she's current on her membership dues, whether she raises her hand during worship on Sundays or whether blonde was her true hair color. Nothing. He doesn't care. He proves it over and over and over again that he doesn't care. And yes, we know that this list is sarcastically anachronistic, which means out of space and time. But our point is made. He didn't even care about her past moral codes or reputation, which was huge in Israel's history. Might we learn something from this story about the way we treat people outside the church today?
Absolutely. Ouch.
Yeah. It is brutally straightforward. She asked him why in the world he would have ever shown her such kindness, acceptance, and grace, and his answer was quite simply because she had shown unconditional love for a woman named Naomi. Now, if you listen real close, you might be able to hear the verse we have in mind straight out of the mouth of Christ, echoing on the end of Boaz's convictions. Listen to this. "Truly I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you have done it unto me." Boaz was a type of Christ. Okay? It's beautiful. But this is nowhere near the best part. So, what is a kinsman redeemer? First of all, did I get ahead of myself?
No.
Okay. So what is a kinsman redeemer? This comes from the Hebrew word goel. And this is one who, among many other things, it's a legal term and it covers a whole bunch of family activity, legal rights, and so on. One who redeems the lost property ownership and passes it on to the younger generation. So if a property owner could not afford his property because it's leveraged mortgaged, and that, by the way, this also includes natural disaster or any kind of thing like that, because they didn't just all have the same kind of property insurance that we have now. The Goel was able to speak with the local patrons, the people who were the high uppity up muckety mucks in the town and the city, and work out some kind of a trade or an intervention to get that property back in livable condition so it can be passed on to the other, to the future generations of the same family. This also did include the women, the children, and the elderly. They were considered property at the time, so they belonged to the home, the land, and so on. So the kinsman redeemer would come in, and they would basically say, look, I know this is a risk. I know that this doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I'm going to buy this for my brother so-and-so. I'm going to take all your elderly, your children, your wives, everything that's on this property, and I'm going to redeem it. Sorry, I'm trying not to get emo because I know where this is going. I am going to redeem it and give back to my family, keeping something in its proper shape, keeping something valuable. It wasn't just, oh, I'm going to redeem it like somebody redeems a coupon, right? It was an actual act of redemption. All right, now this is how it was carried out legally. The original terms of sale for the property would be written on a scroll. This was the names of the people who belonged to it, the area of the land, what goes with the land, and so on. The scroll was signed by the property owner, the goel, okay, and the witnesses inside and at the bottom on the outside, then rolled up and sealed. So if this is your scroll, you have your witnesses sign on the outside in one corner, and on the inside on the document in the areas where all of the details of the contract are being written. Then they roll it up on the outside so that the outside witnesses' signatures are right here, and then it's sealed shut. And there is only one person, okay, that is allowed to open that scroll. So the scroll was signed by the property owner, the goel. I already said that. Part 3. The goel or kinsman redeemer, whose name was signed at the bottom outside of the scroll, was the only one with the legal right to break the seal, open the original contract, view the terms of sale and ownership, and its inhabitants, wife, kids, elderly, and so on, within the family to restore it to its rightful owner. If you look at Revelation, chapter 5, verses 1 through 4, we view the scroll that holds the terms for our salvation. And I, John, saw in the right hand of him, God, that sat on the throne a scroll written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. This is literally Goel terminology. Literally. Straight out of the book of Ruth, straight out of the Old Testament, where they talk about the legal documents and how they work, all throughout Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and so forth. And I saw a scroll, okay, line 2, sat on this throne with a scroll written within and on the backside, sealed with the 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose the seals thereof?" And no man in heaven nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the scroll, neither to look thereon. And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and to read the scroll, neither to look thereon. We'll look at another powerful excerpt here. Prior to Christ, there was no person in history that could ever be worthy to redeem humanity. Nor has any human person ever been kinsman to God. In Boaz terms, we were living on a property with no owner, doomed to wander the earth forever, as, quote, no man in heaven nor in earth, neither under the earth, would be able to open the scroll, representing the property where we resided. Guys, that's earth. That's the property where we reside. And consider any kind of repurchase, redemption, or resale of our spiritual conditions to another caretaker who would see to our provision. It is heart-wrenching to see John in this passage weeping at what scholars say represented the damnation of a forgotten humankind with no promise or no future. These authors would have wept too. That's me and Tom and Allie. What a sad, tragic end for all of us. But in the very next verses, we are introduced to the utmost kinsman redeemer, Jesus Christ. Watch what happens here. Revelation 5 through 10, the scroll that holds the term of our salvation. And one of the elders, one of the witnesses present at the time that this scroll was sealed, and therefore one of the only ones who knew what was stated inside, you see that? See that word picture? Saith unto me, weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the scroll and to loose the 7 seals thereof. And I beheld, in the midst of the elders, the witnesses, stood a lamb, Jesus, as it had been slain. And he came and he took the scroll out of the right hand of God, who sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the scroll, the elders fell down before the Lamb, and they sung a new song, saying, Thou, we found him, Thou art worthy to take the scroll and to open the seals thereof. For thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by the blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and hast made us unto our God kings and priests, and we will reign on the earth. Dude, it's one thing. If Jesus would have been so kind just to save us all, that'd have been enough, right? Kings, priests, we're royalty? Again, I say, dude, that is a very complicated theological term. And it means my brain is exploding at the concept. What follows is a sad scene of praise. What follows is a scene of praise wherein, not sad. No, I have a handwritten note to myself saying something was sad, and I looked at it real quick. What follows is a happy scene of praise wherein every living creature, both in heaven and on earth, worshiped the Lamb, who was the only kinsman of humankind with the right to break the seals on the scroll of our planet's fate. The only Lamb whose spilt blood was the currency, by the way, for the repurchase of the land to begin with and its otherwise lost inhabitants. Jesus, the only entity in the universe who is literally kinsman both to humanity and to God, was willing to take the burden of our fate into his hands, loose the otherwise unloosable 7 seals, and unroll the details of our contract for all to see and for all to inherit freely. Christ was our relative. Without his blood-bought purchase, our destiny would be no more glorious than to remain spiritually lethargic while we wandered the damned corners of the earth, belonging to no one other than the prince of the power of the air and awaiting death and judgment. Boaz's gentle, loving interactions to Ruth never once, required her to account for the pagan, child-sacrificing, incestuous religious worldview that she was raised in, as he simply redeemed her in front of witnesses and elders, making nothing of her life before but a distant and irrelevant memory as he bought her and brought her into new life and new promises. It would be into his loving arms that she would remain forever and never look back. Look at this. Never look back to what the world tried to make of her. Now look at how Jesus fulfills this. Jesus' gentle, loving interactions with the human race never once requires that we live in bondage over past baggage or sin. No matter how grievous our wages of sin and death, new life awaits all inhabitants of this property, earth. And Jesus submitted himself to the cross, paying the price for the redemption of the contract in blood, without a single person being required to first stand an account for who we were and what we were doing before we found him. In front of the heavenly elders, Jesus tore open that scroll and he redeemed us all on the spot. We are truly the blood-bought, the church, the redeemed. New life, new promises, and it is into the loving arms of Jesus and the Father that we fall into, accepting this generous and gracious gift we could have never earned, by the way, we could have never deserved, while we never look back to what the world tried to make of us. Behold, you guys, this is the Christ of Ruth. We've covered Ruth. Jesus is in every one of the 66 books of the Bible. He's foreshadowed, he's spoken of, he is glorified, and he's coming back. And I just covered one book. And by the way, it's one of the shortest books in the entire Bible. Ruth, 4 more chapters. Boom! Behold, the Christ of Ruth. Do you see what we miss when we skim right past the details? Jesus is in the details. And he's in there over 66 times, but at least 66 times. The Bible looks forward to exactly what he's going to be. No, so here's how to wrap up Ruth, right? Here's the geology. Ruth and Boaz had Obed. Obed had Jesse. Jesse had David. The David, of course, the greatest king of Israel, through whom the Messiah, the son of David, was promised. The very one who would later carry out his own Boaz story of redemption for all of mankind. You can't make this up. You see what I'm saying? It takes more faith not to believe, you guys. I talk to skeptics and atheists all the time. I hear them, I see them on TikToks, YouTubes. I see them saying, well, if God is here, then, and then they start the list. And I'm telling you, they are listening to their side of the argument. It takes one look at one book, and you're like, you can't come up with that on your own. A human imagination cannot put that together. So be faith strengthened this weekend, right? Yeah. Now, again, actually, you know what? Do I have time to go there?
Yeah. Go there.
Mama?
Go.
All right.
Go for it.
Anybody read Ecclesiastes and feel that it's a little pessimistic? Yeah? Has anybody in here already heard my spiel on Ecclesiastes?
No.
Really?
Come on.
What?
Maybe.
Oh, thank you.
You're
yeah. I like it. Told my dad when I was little, he's like, you never know, you might grow up and be a woman preacher. And I was like, Dad, well, women can't be a preacher. Why do you say that? Well, and I repeated something about something Paul said, didn't know a thing about it. He goes, what if you did it anyway? Wouldn't it be fun? And I said, I don't really see it. I don't really care about it. I don't really think that's what I'm ever going to do. And then about 10 years ago, he says, hey, oh, I got to tell you the story about what happened when I went to Arizona with Allie. I'll make it quick. My dad tells me, he says, I don't know why I'm sending you to Arizona. You and Allie, I have no clue, didn't he, Allie? No clue.
And he said it for days.
For days. Don't know why I'm sending you there. There's some girly conference thing, I don't know. You're going to go there, they'll probably give away free lipstick or a purse or something. It's going to cost me much more money than I ever wanted to spend to send you to Arizona, but something's going to happen there. I'm not going to say what happened with Allie. She had her own testimony confirming that she was exactly who she thought she was supposed to be, which was cool because...
Misfits. It's in there.
Oh, yeah, it's in Misfits. But anyway, so he tells me that I'm going to go there and he doesn't know what I'm supposed to get there. And I go to this conference and I'm just attending. I'm not teaching or doing anything. And they said, if you are a millennial by this date to this date birthday, I want you to stand up. Of course, I met the cutoff by 2 months. And so I was like, I'm a millennial, so I'm supposed to stand up. And then they said, we're going to have all of the women that are around these young millennials lay hands on them. And I was like, please, no. Because you got to understand, I grew up Pentecostal, and I believe in supernatural power. I believe in miracles. I am truly, by doctrine, a Pentecostal, but I have seen the weird Pentecostal too, a little bit. And so you've seen the kind of the stuff that happens when you're... It's just a bit of a turn off, and I was like, oh no, I don't know these people, and I'm going to have hands all over me, and I was really nervous. I cannot explain what happened. It was a supernatural thing. I have yet to be able to explain this. But I'm standing there. Okay. Hands on me. From everywhere. Oh! They put it there too. Yeah, good. God bless you too. Not in my comfort zone. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this woman who was preaching, She said, "You've called these millennials into a purpose, and I pray that you would reveal that on the count of 3. And again, you have to understand, because I grew up the way that I did, I'm waiting for the 3 so that the hands will go off. I wasn't waiting for the 3 because I thought anything else was coming. And she said 3, and there was no pain, but my jaw right here set on fire. Not literal fire with flames, but like it burned. There was a burning sensation on my jaw. And it's so weird to explain because it was on fire, but there was no pain. It was just hot. Really, really hot. And this other woman who was standing here, which over the weekend, you could come up with all different kinds of wonderful and colorful things to say about this lady, but she had her hand on me, and she jerked it off, and she went, "Whoa!" really loud.
Ellie.
I apologize. Okay.
Still there.
Anyway, that was the testimony, and I came home and I told my dad about that, and he said, "I knew it and I confirm it. You're supposed to be a preacher, a teacher, or something. You're supposed to do this."
Open your mouth.
And anyway, since then I finally stopped telling him all the reasons why I couldn't do the very thing that I'm doing now. But I'm still not there yet. You get me? Like, I've been doing this 10 years now, and I'm still standing up here sweating bullets and being nervous. But do it afraid, right? Wait till you hear what I'm going to preach on Sunday morning. No excuse to saying no to God, even it doesn't matter whether or not you're comfortable with it. So, let me get back to this. I'm gonna tell you a couple of things about Ecclesiastes you probably didn't know. Yay, it still works. So, when we often think of Ecclesiastes, it's overwhelmingly negative or pessimistic. It tears down everything we think is good by calling it vanity and meaningless, while stating that every endeavor is a mere chasing after the wind, right? And after all of its bad news, it ends up with the trite, "Do what God tells you to do" directive, leaving us feeling like there's nothing left in life to enjoy or find beautiful. But we still have to obey a bunch of rules along the way because God says so, and follow God. That's the way we think of Ecclesiastes. Okay. It was bugging me because I was doing research in the Mystery of Jesus book, and I was cranking this thing out fast. And I just could not let go of Ecclesiastes. It was bothering me so bad that it was just kind of seemed to be really negative. And there was a couple of moments in there too where he's like, "Yeah, we do this, that, and the other thing, and in the end we die, but love God." And it just didn't seem like it fit the theme of the life-giving scripture to me. But I knew that there had to be an explanation for that. So I went through my Logos Bible software. I contacted every single professor at Global University and 2 or 3 of the other universities that they've got friends with. And I just kind of started the chain. Who can explain this to me? And I'll be darned if I didn't find it in the weirdest place. Okay. Pessimism literature was an actual literary form. It was a device. And here's why you haven't heard of this yet. It was only used by kings. Much in the way that today a U.S. president would give a State of the Union address. You're not going to get a State of the Union address if you go to Walmart or a conference. A State of the Union address comes specifically to from the president to his people, acknowledging all the things that stink that they want to see fixed. And then he follows it up by giving whatever his plan is. I won't go into politics, but some of them are not the greatest plans, right? Okay. Pessimism literature, also known as pessimistic philosophy. It was a form of literature, a literary device is the technical term for that, and it is now extinct across the globe. But it was familiar in the ancient Near East, tracing back to at least 2000 BC. Antique Egyptian and Mesopotamian texts have several examples. I've read them. They sound like Ecclesiastes, such as the good fortune of the dead, a dispute over suicide, and the satire on the trades, and so on. Only kings, pharaohs, or rulers of large regions would write these letters or books, much like a State of the Union address to Westerners today. So, the purpose of pessimism literature This is fascinating. They explored the unanswered questions of life and acknowledged/sympathized with the pain of their people. This meant that they had to be transparent about every hardship or justice. So far, this is sounding familiar because Ecclesiastes is a bunch of hardships and injustice. So this is what they did. They'd get close to the end of their letter. So they'd start their letter. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're going through this thing that stinks and this thing that hurts and that thing that's really bothering you and this. They go down a long, long list. And at the end, they blame the failure of all of these things on the pagan gods that have failed them. That's what they would do. So you're sick because the god or goddess, whatever pantheon, Egyptian pantheon, Greco-Roman pantheon, whatever, Mesopotamian ancient gods, they're literally so ancient we don't have any specific pantheon to assign them to. Whatever the pagan god that failed, you're sick because that goddess let you down. You're sick because that god let you down. You lost your property in a fire because this god let you down. The famine happened because the god of plenty over here didn't do what he said he was going to do. Yes, I know. You ran around that idol and you cut yourself and you did the rain dance and it still didn't work. It's his fault, right? That's what they would do. Through the process, they attempted to find answers to the social and political problems that confronted their subjects' daily lives to position themselves as heroes. So the pharaoh or their king would get to the end and say, your gods failed you, but I won't. I've got a plan. Now listen to this. This is irony at its finest. But negativity, doubt, and cynicism was the framework within which a positive result could be produced. Okay, you can't fix a problem until you admit you have a problem. So you've got to use the framework of negativity, doubt, and cynicism in order to produce a positive result or answer. So there is a reason why Solomon's book differs from the secular pessimism literature of that day. Because instead of saying, your gods failed you and I'm not going to, he goes to a completely different and very surprising ending. After admitting all of the trifling details of life, he says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God, not us, not Solomon, shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Okay, instead of blaming God, Solomon actually acknowledged the pain of his people and said that God was the answer to everything. So God is the hero of the State of the Union address. That's what he did. But this one moment that I don't want you to miss is the sole duty of man. That would not have been lost on his readers during that day. We read it and we go, okay, that's the sole duty of man. What next? But during that day, his readers would have been waiting for the big da-da-da-dawn of the State of the Union address. They would have been getting to the end of the letter and saying, okay, which God am I going to have to worship? How am I going to have to cut myself? Who am I going to have to sleep with? Excuse me, I'm sorry, but it depends on the pagan gods you're following. Who am I going to have to sacrifice? What am I going to have to lose? How am I going to gain the favor of XYZ pagan god? He gets to the end of his letter and he goes, the sole duty of man, i.e., that's all you have to do. It's a positive letter if there ever was one. I'm going to give you an example as to how he took this journey real quick. Abraham was instructed by God to sacrifice the promised child, Isaac, right? But just before Abraham carried out the deed, a ram was provided in the thicket for sacrifice, proving that God had never intended Abraham to perform the human sacrifice to please him to begin with. You guys don't forget that Abraham was from Ur. Okay, this ancient Chaldean part of the world, child sacrifice was commonplace. So for Abraham, he was going into this relationship with God, and when God said, take your son up a mountain and kill him, he went, oh, well, that stinks because it's the promised child, but God must know what he's doing. Let's go do it. Now, it does say in the book of Hebrews that he made it to the heroic hall of fame because he believed that God would raise the son. Okay, that's there too. But understand that we get, as Christians, I know I did until I understood it, we get nervous and uncomfortable when we hear that God told someone to sacrifice their son, their human child. And there's a part of us when we're first getting to know God that we're like, I see that you provided the ram in the thicket. Thank you for doing that, but why did you even go there? Why did you even use that language? It's so evil. Here's why. God had to illustrate it in a way that it would never be forgotten, right? He had to let Abraham climb that mountain all the way up, thinking he knew what gods were like. So that when he got up there, God could, in that moment, provide a ram and put the holy smackdown on human sacrifice forever, in a way that was illustrative. He wouldn't forget it because God had led him all the way up the mountain to see how this was going to be illustrated. And I have a note to myself here. God could have simply instructed Abraham to sacrifice the ram in the first place, but his divine will would not have been shown. Not just told, but shown. And future generations would have, as they did, slipped back into pagan practices. We could have seen a moment in time where the future Jewish line actually did go back into child sacrifice. Part of the reason why we didn't is because of the holy smackdown laid on the mountain that day. It was illustrative. God made it clear. It was an almighty smackdown on the very concept. So the comparison here between Abraham and Isaac and Ecclesiastes, just to help you kind of understand. In the case of Abraham and Isaac, God never intended Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. In the case of Ecclesiastes, Solomon never intended Ecclesiastes to promote pessimism. In the case of Abraham and Isaac, Abraham was from Ur, child sacrifice was normal, and an illustrative lesson was needed. In the case of Ecclesiastes, the Israelites grumbled. Grumbling was normal. If you don't believe me, read the New Testament or the Old Testament. An illustrative lesson was needed. All right, in the case of Abraham and Isaac, God uses the mountain of sacrifice journey to put the holy smackdown on human sacrifice and introduce a blood substitute, the ram, in a way that it would stick with Abraham and his descendants forever. In Ecclesiastes, Solomon used the mountain of pessimism to put the holy smackdown. Okay, he took his readers on the same journey here. To put the holy smackdown on the grumbling of Israel and introduce the positive, optimistic truth that God is the answer in a way that would stick with his readers and their descendants forever. So just because we have lost the concept of pessimistic literature does not mean that we need to completely lose. The bottom line was not this crappy thing, this stinky thing happens, and that stinky thing happens over there, and everything just gets stinkier and stinkier, and in the end we die. Oh, and by the way, we're not really any more important than the animals. That's not Ecclesiastes. He was saying, folks, listen to me. I know, I've heard your grumbling. You complain about this. You complain about that. You complain about this. He was writing down the things that had been taken to his courtroom. And he gets to the end and he says, the whole duty of man is just love God. That's it. Don't have to cut yourself. Don't have to burn your neighbor's field. Just love God. That's it. Like, it's so positive. Scholars say that Solomon's whole goal in following the tradition of the pessimism literature of his day was to produce a holy counterpart to Israel's secular pagan neighbors. Its work was, look at this, quote, a reply to the unrelieved pessimism of much ancient thought. Therefore, we say in Volume 1, Ecclesiastes was written to dispute and to defy the hopelessness of those who adhered to the pagan religions. If all of life in the absence of God is meaningless vanity and a chasing after the wind, then the presence of God results in an antinomous treatment of everything that the book says as a whole. God is the meaning of it all, exceedingly valuable and worth every effort that we can put in to the chase toward him. Now, if that was true in Solomon's day, how much truer is it today, since Jesus was the blood sacrifice once and for all? Amen. So you look at the everything that Ecclesiastes says. It's hard to see Jesus in Ecclesiastes until you see what Solomon was actually doing when he wrote that. When you see how he wrote it, what he wrote, and his bottom line, then you look at what that means today and you go, oh my gosh, Jesus changed the entire thing. Everything in Ecclesiastes is the opposite of what you thought that it was saying. And I'm telling you what, if I lost anybody by the book, I'm telling you, I'm not up here to sell you a book. But the book breaks it down and it shows you how Jesus becomes the fulfillment of every longing in the human heart. Now, Jesus in the wisdom books, just to give you a quick nutshell of how he appears and everything else, he was the mediator of justice that Job couldn't see, the hope and the answer that the psalmists looked forward to, the perfected wisdom that Proverbs anticipated, the meaning of life that Ecclesiastes projected, the love of God that the Song of Solomon reflected, and so much more. Jesus is in every single one of all the 66 books of the Bible, and it goes so much more beyond what I can even cover here in this presentation. So I hope that was a happy little introduction to your weekend. I'm going to turn it over to Mom. Come on, Mama. Yay!
No, I'm an old school. PowerPoint came out right after I gave my last public presentation. Just saying. It's been a while for me. In fact, I feel like I'm just gonna tell you, how do you follow that? Just saying. I'm very proud of my kids. Just saying. Very proud. And yeah, you know what? Dad had it right. She is a woman preacher. Woohoo! And I'm very proud of that. As for me, I'm not a woman preacher. So you're not going to get a woman preacher. You're going to get me. I have done the best I can to try to prepare something, and I'm going to just be truthful. And these guys here, these girls can attest to this. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. That this is an absolute truth. So we're driving along, and Donna's like, "Hey, they're doing the warrior woman," and they want to know if we all want to participate. I've not done any public speaking. I think the last time, as a conference type thing, I think it was in 2011, the year our house burnt down. And then after that, God put me on a different course, and I have been doing all of that, and here I am now. But when this all came up, I thought, should I do this? And I just kind of felt a little bit of a prompting. The Lord said, sure, go for it. I'm going to tell you, this has been really, really difficult. And here's why. Because I'm not a writer. Truth be told, my girls helped me write no fences because I can't sit still long enough to do nothing. I am just in and around, and just everybody that knows me knows that. So my girls, I sat long enough to dictate to them, and then we had several meetings, and they helped me get it on paper. So I appreciate them. Everything that we have as a family is because as a family we have worked together. And so I'm thankful for that. Just want to say thank you for inviting us for this opportunity, because for me it's kind of historic. I get to speak with my girls And I get to be with my little, those, they're not so little anymore. And then earlier, whenever you introduced me as the mother of 3 children, I went,
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Catherine, believe it or not, is my daughter. She is my daughter, and the girls, they know this. We're bonded, man. We're family. She's as much my daughter as if I had given birth to her myself. And she has been a right-hand person with the rest of all the family. And actually, Catherine is our warehouse manager, product manager, kid manager, employee. She holds such a large part. Huh?
Just her camp kitchen.
She is. She runs kitchen for me in the camp during the summer. So she does a lot. She's as much part of this family as any of the rest. I want to introduce a couple of other fun ones. You guys already know Allie and Donna, which we're very proud. Kate, raise your hand so they can see you are. Okay, so Kate recently has started mentoring, and she's been started kind of merging in to take my place at the ranch. And this is one of the reasons why I thought, okay, well, maybe I can do this now. Maybe I can talk, because I may be getting enough time to put something on paper. So Kate is now, she's managing, mostly just overseeing animal care and training, and all of the petting zoo that we have got, and she is the one that brought that on. I dreamed it, but she had to make it happen because I just didn't have enough focus for one thing because of how spread thin I am. But she has come in and taken over management on all animals, training, and she has 2 people that work with her. And that's quite a bit to ask for such a young girl. But because of her, I'm able to do what I'm doing. Another up and coming, and if you listen to KCOZ, in the mornings between 7 and 9, you're going to hear Kat on the radio because she is your local host for, you can tell a bit about that tomorrow because she's going to have a turn. I apologize if I stammer. I am also what Donna has described as extremely petrified right now. I have not done this for so many years and I don't even know if I'm going to get through it, but here we go. I just want you to take 1 second. Do you know the person whom you are sitting next to? Are you buddies? You do now. Okay, so how many have just met the person next to you right now for the first time? Raise your hand. You have just now met the person next to you for the first time. Good. I'm so thankful. So thankful. Because now I don't feel so alone. The other thing, I'm sitting there, but I'm meeting a lot of people for the first time. How many was here last year? Peggy, I remember you. You came and worked at the camp. That was great. It's funny watching you. So, my thing I'm supposed to talk about today, okay, here we go. It's supposed to be concepts of God. Now, here's the thing. This is probably I'm getting there. It's probably the most helpful message for me as a younger Christian coming in because I was not raised in church. I went to church kind of sometimes, like on Easter when they would give you goodies and you could hunt little eggs in a basket and you'd go home with a bunch of stuff. And then I would go also at Christmas time and they would do little things to get you to come in. And so my sister and I, we loved it. We would do that. Mom would let us go. But we did not attend church or any of that as a family growing up. In fact, I'm going to talk a little bit tomorrow, and my herd mentality is my thing for tomorrow, my term for tomorrow. And I'm going to give you a testimony that is not in the book, No Offenses, and I hope that it's okay if I do that. When I wrote that book, I did not want to share some of what I'm going to tell you tomorrow for 2 reasons, because at the time, my mom was still living, and I did not want to drag her through some of the stuff I'm going to share. She has always given me permission to say whatever I need to say to help other people, but just didn't want to do it. So we lost my mom a couple of years ago, and she gives me her blessing, and so I know I'm not doing anything behind her back. I've been kind of on a shutdown for a while, for lots of reasons. One is just because of the timing of my life and what God has asked me to do and where I've been and what I've been focused on. And so that's taken me away from some of it. But anyway, timing is for me this is my first attempt to do anything that's a public speaking. Now, I'm on Simply His, and we do that. That's a little bit different. Because if I make a boo-boo, we laugh it off and they just erase it. We don't, you guys never know. Unless you have what happens at the Skywash stays at Skywash. Just saying. No, I'm not kidding. Sometimes we say silly things, but we have a blast. We laugh and we have fun. This is my first attempt at trying to speak public, and I'm not apologizing. I'm trying to work up the nerve to continue. Oh, thank you. So, I think right now is a good time for me just to open in prayer, and then we'll go from there. We'll see where God takes it, because I know it's already kind of late. Father, I ask you right now in the name of Jesus to give me strength and give me courage and give me the words, Father, that you would have me speak. It would not matter how much study I put into something, just to spit words at people, if it's not meaningful, if it doesn't help people, if it doesn't edify you, then I have wasted all of my time. So I'm asking you right now, God, that you open my mouth, put in my mind and in my heart things that need to come out. Don't let me say things that are not important. Let me say things that only need to be spoken tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Make sure I minutes. Oh yeah, I'm glad that you got to meet the person next to you, because I have a reason why later I'm going to tell you about some stuff. I'm going to try to get through this. So, I'm going to talk to you tomorrow about herd mentality, and we're going to share a little bit about some of the horses there, and how that I learned a lot about God through horses. Just saying, because remember, I didn't grow up in church. I became an adult, went into the church, and instantly into ministry, and there was some development there that I did not get. But God used these little horses to teach me. This is why I've been in the pasture all these years. He's been doing some good stuff. I just got to figure out how to get it out. Okay, so this message is called Concepts of God. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because it may not be for you. Maybe it's for a neighbor. Maybe it's for someone in your life. I don't know. But here we go. It's probably one of the most helpful messages for me as a young person, because I did not have a good concept of God. I kind of knew he was there and I was supposed to respect him, was about what I was taught. And again, I went to Sunday school and learned how to color little pictures. And I remember this guy that was on a cross with a crown of thorns, and we gathered Easter eggs and what all that had to do with each other. We don't know, but I'm just saying there were some things I did not get the whole picture. The dots were missing. So when I heard this message, it may be simple to you, but it was very helpful to me and very instrumental in every application of my life, because it taught me a lot about concepts, period. So I'm going to read a little bit. Bear with me. And again, this is my first time out the gate here for a few years, so the old gray mare, ain't what she used to be. Oh, who said that? Oh, I love you, Peggy. I love you. I should have known that was her. She's so sweet. Okay, I'm sorry. Numbers 13, verse 1. And I'm going to read a little bit, so bear with me as I read. I'm going to read Numbers 13, 1 through 3, and I'm going to drop down to 17, and I don't have any of this to help you with, but I have my notes if you want to know later. Numbers 17 through 33, then we're going to jump into chapter 14 a little bit, and I'm going to read a little bit just to kind of set you up. I know I've thrown that at you really quickly. So Numbers 13, 1 through 3. The Lord said to Moses, "Send men to explore the land of Canaan, and the land I am giving to the Israelites. Send one leader each from the 12 ancestral tribes." And so Moses did as the Lord commanded him. And he sent the 12 men, all tribal leaders of Israel, from their camp in the wilderness of Paran. And I hope I say those right. I forget the words wrong. I'm not theologian here. When Moses, dropping down to 17. When Moses sent them to explore Canaan, he said, "Go up to the Negev, onto the hill country." And verse 18. This was their mission. See what the land is like and whether the people who live there are strong or weak or few or many. What kind of land do they live in? Is it good? Is it bad? What kind of towns do they live in? And are they walled? Are they fortified? What's the soil like? Is it fertile? Is it poor? And are there trees in the land or not? Do the best you can to bring some fruit back, and because it was the season of the first ripe grapes. Down at 21, so they went up and they explored the land from the desert it was in as far as Rimah towards Libo-Hamath. I hope that's right. They went up through the Negev and came to Hebron, where the Yohanan, Shishai, and Almighty, and somebody tell me what it says. And I did practice these, but I still didn't get them. Okay, so I'm jumping down to 23. When they reached the valley of Eshcol, they cut off a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes. It took 2 of them to carry it on a pole between them with some pomegranates and some figs. Then they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them in the whole assembly and showed the fruit of the land. They gave Moses the account. We went to the land that you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. So there's a good report, right? Yeah. So there were 12 of them that went there, and you guys probably already know the story. You know where we're going with all this. Okay, so I can kind of nutshell, we'll condense a little bit for the sake of time. Let me read, though. Verse 29, I want to point out, and the Amalekites lived in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea along the Jordan. Canaanites, that's kind of an important word, because we're going to come at that in a sec. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go and take the land. We can do this. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I'm sure you're catching on to that real quick. But the men who had gone up with him, here comes the other 10. We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites. They spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. So basically what happened, he says back in, jumping down to, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there were of great size. 33. We saw the Nephilim. They were descendants of Enoch, come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. So that's kind of right there where I want to stop for a sec. Because what happened? Back up a little bit now. Let's go back just a few months, weeks. I'm not sure what the time frame is, but we're gonna go back to when they came out of the land of Egypt. I want to sing you this song. This was the song of victory. I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Give the tambourines. Come on, you gotta know the song. Da, 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 right? Come to the streets, dancing all around, getting into it. Just really, the Lord is my strength and my song. He has given me victory. This is my God, and I will praise him, my Father's God. This is the God that was and is and is to come. I mean, these guys were really on fire. They knew who God was, right? There was no doubt, because he was before him and he was behind him, and there was nothing in between. When they got stuck and he had nowhere to go, God blew his breath. The water parted. The land was dry. And you have to understand, walking on mud would have been. What would have happened? So it was dry. Not only was it the sea parted, it was dry land. Telling you, that's a miracle. Nothing less. And then you walk through there, and they're now getting to the other side, and then the water comes crashing down, and all of the enemy was washed away. All of the enemy, they were victorious. God led them through death to life. The Lord is my warrior. Yahweh is his name. Da-da-da-da, Pharaoh and the chariots are me. You'll know that part. Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand smashes the enemy. Okay, so you guys get the picture, right? That's my favorite part. Verse 15, and I'm reading actually out of Exodus 15. Verse 15, this one caught my eye as I was reading through all of this again. The leaders of Edom are terrified. The nobles of Moab tremble. And all who live in Canaan melt away. Right? Well, so, now, fast forward. We're back to Joshua and Caleb. We can do this. We need to do this now. Send us. Let's go do this. We got this. Oh, I don't know. There was giants down there. You know. Just like they're kind of big. You know, just, I don't know. We should have stayed in Egypt. We should have stayed back in Egypt. Where are we in this wilderness? Read it. Numbers 14, 1 through 4. That night, all the members of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in the wilderness, why is this Lord bringing us to this land only to let us die by the sword? Our wives and children. I mean, it goes on and on. It would have been better to go back to Egypt. And then they said, hey, I know what we'll do. This is what we should do. Let's get us a leader and go back. That was their plan. Really? That's their plan? They have come all this way. They have walked through water. They have seen all of these miracle after miracle after miracle. Food falls out of heaven. Water comes out of rocks. And all of a sudden, they go to spy out this land. And now they are just like, so then, and what has happened is that, like, we're like grasshoppers to these guys. So guess what? Guess what happened to God during that time? Their concept of God was diminished from this mighty, majestic, powerful, what? Controls the elements, to this little tiny God of the grasshopper people. That is what happened. And that was the God they were now serving. And they murmured, and they murmured, and they murmured. And they were ready to stone Joshua and Caleb and pick their own leader and go back to Egypt. I'm sorry, that's very sad. Very sad. So, but I'm not going to leave you hanging there. I can't leave you hanging there. I don't need to do the recap because we've done such a good job covering that part. So, jump forward. These people were the people of the God of miracles. They were on the brink of the promised land. And it indeed flowed with milk and honey. I mean, this is what they had been waiting for, right? Because God promised this. And it was the promised land. It had everything that they wanted. But now, they're going to complain again. And I think probably because God didn't blow his breath and knock them all out and then they could just go and get the land. This time he's going to say, no, we're going to do this together. Well, yeah, maybe I should go back. So I'm just saying, and then God, he just said to Moses, he says, I'm done with these people. We're done. Been there, done that, over and over. We're not doing it anymore. So, those people that were 20 years old and up did not enter the promised land. They missed out because their concept of that miracle working God became so diminished among their murmuring that they forgot the God of power, the God of miracles. And so that was the end of that one. So, and a person's inability to conceive the totality of God always manifests in a person reducing God to the least concept from that which he actually is. Before it was over with, they decided to do one more thing. They built a golden calf. So not only did they want to stone Joshua and Caleb and pick a leader and go back to Egypt, they decided they're going to build their own God. Because the God that they had, he died in the month. They weren't thinking, I guess. Anyway, they built a golden calf. And they started to form a relationship with this calf. Well, God didn't like that. And I don't blame him. But here's what's sad. I don't know how a person can go from having this God that just, think about it. you're on the other side, and you turn around, and the water goes like this, and your enemies are just tumbling and floating and gasping for breath, and now you're here with this golden calf. I don't get it. The concept went weird. Because I guess the God just wasn't doing what they thought God should do. Anyway, so here's something I want you to stop and think about. And if this is for you, yay. If it's for not, take it and give it to someone else, or maybe it's for me to say. Think really carefully about your concept of God, because it will determine your relationship with Him. Your concept of God will determine what your relationship is with God. And it can change if you're not careful. And I mean, when I say careful, I'm not saying like, you guys ladies, man, you guys got it going on. You do. There's a power in this place. It was here last year too. So I feel like I'm preaching to people that could teach me so much. But this is what God asked me to do here, and this is what I'm doing. I was thinking I'm going to ask you a question. Who am I? What's my name? Okay, so now you know my name, right? Okay, good. And the person next to you, some of you met just for the first time tonight, right? Okay. No, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, some of you have sat next to somebody you've met, and if it's someone you know, that's even a good point too. Just hang on. So, now, this is hilarious if I can find all this stuff. If you were to Google my name, you probably would confuse me with someone who is a famous litigation consultant, or maybe a human resources director of a very large Chevron firm, or maybe I'm 92 years old and I live in another state, or maybe you're reading my obituary. Just, you're looking at the name, right? That concept, because depending on where you're at. If you Google my husband, you might confuse him as a murderous, killer, lawman for hire, a.k.a. the scout in charge of the party that captured Geronimo, or you might confuse him with an American child actor who won a whole bunch of money on Jeopardy during Children's Week. Or the author of numerous books. This one here is my most interesting one. How many have read this book by Tom Horn? I don't see no hands. Do you not recognize this book? It says Sermons, Selections, and Prayers from the Manuscripts, Thomas Horn. Okay, so here's what I love about this book. I bought this book on eBay, and the advertisement was author and owner of Defender Publishing. So I bought this book thinking, that's one you sneaked under the radar. I opened the book, you're going to love this, and I found out that Thomas Horn died at 73 years old in 1874. Somebody was taking my husband's information and selling this book. Well, of course, I had to send a little note. No, it was very sweet. Because I wanted them to hear me. I figured if I gripe and I just want you guys to know that you have information is inaccurate. They were selling this book, telling people, advertising that this was Tom Horn's name. So, we'll look into it. I said, no, but you don't understand. I think I know something about this guy because I'm married to him. Well, and instantly he disappeared. And you can buy this book, but it's not in association with Thomas Horn. Now, if you dig through the book deeper, what they did was they took off the G. So this is a G Thomas Horn. But they were making money, hey, right? So I'm just saying, depending on what your concept is, that might have been something you might have bought. I bought it. I had to prove to myself I was right. So that's kind of a fun little deal. Fact is, my name is Juanita, not Nita. I go by Nita. I have a granddaughter named Juanita. We call her Nita Lee. She calls her Juanita. It depends on what day it is. I might call her, what did you call her, Cheetah? Used to call her Nita, Cheetah. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, right. So she's got several little names depending on who's talking. Okay, my name also, if it's Allie or Donna, Catherine, it's usually Mom. In younger years, they used to call me Mooster. Sometimes they would call me Roo. And these were all nicknames that they just came up with one day. Okay, and then huh? Yeah, okay. Mooster came from Joe. And I don't even know, it's not like he was calling me a cow. It was just one day, hey, Mooster, and that just, thought that was funny. I have a granddaughter who calls me Grandy Mom because she thinks that's too cute. These two usually call me Blam. And it's because Blam was a nickname that was tagged on me because her daughter, Rebecca, could not say Graham, because Kate was calling me Graham. So she couldn't say Graham, so she said Blam. Okay, I'm saying all that to say there are reasons why I have different names, right? We know this about God, don't we know this about God? He has different names, right? Depending on who is talking and what you need at the moment you're talking. We're going to get there in just 1 second, and I did bring you guys a little something. Okay. Just an interesting little fact that I found out when I was looking at the meaning of my name. My middle name means, and it's Fern. So some people call me Nita Fern. I used to have cousins, Nita Fern. That's where I got my. They tease me because when I say food, it comes out food. Real strong. Anyway, it means humility of solitude. In other words, the fern plant grows kind of in the forest underneath a lot of covering. People like that describe myself any better because these guys know I hide behind them. I do. It's like, Catherine, over there. Donna, do that. And the guy says, no, we're going to clear the trees out. You're coming out. So here I am. Okay, names are important to our family because we have shared them back and forth, and there's reasons we do that. When my sister died, about 1 year before she was killed, we had made a promise to each other that we would name our firstborn girl after each other. That is why Allie was named Allie, except her name is Althea, not Allie. But we call her Allie. Donna was named after another family member, and middle name another family member. The list goes on. Kat was named after Catherine. She was named after her grandma. Her kids were named after my son and daughter, and I mean, it goes on. We share these names because names to us are important. It's a place of honor. When you name somebody after somebody, they get to take that name forever, and it's something that you gave them. And they also mean things like Fern, who knew, right? Okay, just real quick, I want to shift gears really quickly, and I think I'm getting close to being done. I want to use a scenario, and I hope I pull this off, because this one gets kind of confusing, but it's so much fun if I can do it right. I wanted to give you what could be a typical day in my life. One. And here's why. I'm going to walk you through some things that happened to me. Now, this is not any specific day. It could be any day. Because you ask these guys, I might wake up today and then I'm in Springfield. I might be out in the ranch. We don't know sometimes. So, I'm going to this is kind of made up, but not. But I made it in this to make a point. First thing in the morning, this is true. First thing in the morning, I get up and I make smoothies for my husband and I. And then I divvy up all of our little supplements. I take them into him and I say, hi, honey, did you sleep well? Oh, good. Okay, bend back one, put your drops in, and then he bends back and I put eye drops in his eyes because he has dry eyes and he's at the computer all day, and so I help him. Okay, that's great. Then I get into the warehouse, get in my car and I'm going to drive to the warehouse. Now, in our warehouse, the Catherine is pretty much overseer in all of it. All of these entities exist. There's a Skywash, part, corporate, head office. The finances are there. There's Eden's Essentials is in there. Simply His is in that warehouse. Help me out, Catherine. All of the Defender. Everything. Skywash, Defender, all of it. The only thing that's not there, and sometimes Kate brings them in, and those are little ponies. We bring the ponies in for stress relief. And that's fun. Let's do training. Okay, then I drive and I go into the warehouse for various different reasons. Driving along the road next to the little yellow blinking light, there's a patrol cop parked there, and I see as he throws up his radar. As I pass by, I slow down. Thankfully, he didn't stop me, because I'm in a hurry. I arrive at the warehouse, and then I go in and talk to Crystal, who works with our finances. I hand her the bills. I go over to Hunter, who takes all the checks and processes all of that. I chat for a minute, make sure that they don't need anything, and then I go out to the next deal. In the same building, I go over and I talk to Cherise, which is our Human Resources Director, and I ask her questions, and more questions, and more questions. She's glad I'm gone. I go into Eden's Essentials. I'll grab a few product things that I might need for the day, and then I put in a little bag, and I tell Kim, this is what I took, and then I leave, because Kim is our manager in there. Then I go off to Defender Publishing, and I talk to Penny, who not only is managing our book shipping and all that, she's a fellow pony mom from a long time back. She's one of the people that made me realize I needed to do therapy with horses. I saw her sister light up one day, man, just going through some stuff. And she brought her sister to visit, and when she got there, put her little grandkid on this little horse that had Buttercup. And I'll tell you about Buttercup tomorrow during the herd mentality. But I can't explain what happened. I got photos of it, and you can almost see this light in her face, because for just a few moments she got to kind of escape the heartache that she was suffering. Okay, sorry, I'll try not to pick her up, which is what I do. Then I head out to the ranch, okay, to pick up supplies. Well, all right? No, I'm not to the ranch yet. I'm heading out to go get supplies for the ranch. I'm coming to Kate later. And then when I get to the feed store, I tell them, okay, I need 2 bags of this and 2 bags of that, 1 bag of that. Okay, then I go to a grocery store, and I'm going somewhere like this, trust me. I pick up milk and eggs, and the people behind the counter go, oh, how's this and the ponies doing? So we talk for a minute, that's good. Get in the car, now I'm heading to the ranch. I talk to Kate and Adam. Kate tells me that we have a slight emergency because one of our little goats just headbutted the little sheep, and it didn't do so well, and we had to put it in the car and take it in and get it done. Horn fix and yes. We have a unicorn now. Yeah. It was harder on me than it was anybody, let me tell you. Kate will tell you. Okay. Then I scratch a pony. I love it. I get good pony scratches. Scratchy, lovey, scratchy. There's a reason I'm doing all this. Just bear with me. So then I arrive home, and I go to Simply Yes. We do some ponies, then I ride home. And I talk with my husband, and so should we eat dinner here? Do we want to go out to eat? Yeah, we're going to go out to eat. So we go to the restaurant, and the hostess will seat us, and then the server comes and takes care of us. We go home, watch a few minutes of TV, and then we're done for the day, and I get the day. All right, so now what does all of that have to do with anything? And I'm happy that you was hanging in there with me, because I'm hoping now to explain what that means. So I'm driving along, and to the cop that's parked near the blinking light, I am a ticket, hoping he can get it, right? I'm a potential citation. To the bookkeeper, I am the mail courier for all the bills and the checks that they need. To Hunter in that same office, I am the pony sponsor that tells her I need names and stuff, which I just got the other day. To the Human Resources, Cherise, I'm that person, the boss's wife, who won't stop asking lots of questions. To Ken and Eden's Defender, I'm Joe's mother, and Ken and Eden's Essential, I am Joe's mom, there to pick up stuff. Okay, so that's quick in and out. Make sure I don't lose my spot. To Penny, again, I'm a longtime friend and a pony mom. To the people in the feed store, I'm a dollar bill. I'm going to spend my money, so they're going to get there. To the lady at the checkout, I'm the crazy lady that's got the cute little ponies that she always wants to know how they're doing. At the ranch, to Kate, I am her grandma, a.k.a. she calls me Blam, which I love. That name's my favorite nickname. And I'm also her boss. And her unemployment, she'll behave. You love it. I'm also her emergency vehicle when we have to run goats with no horn to the vet. And to Adam, who works with Kate, I'm the CEO of Western Ponies Ranch because she's the direct manager. To those at the Simply His taping, I am a comrade. To Allie and Donna and Catherine, I am the mom. To Kat and Grandma. Anyway. To Cherise and Sarah at the Simply His filming, I'm a comrade and a fellow Simply His sister. And to the audience, I'm a co-host and program personality. To the ponies, I'm the pony mom, and I give lots of good scratches, and they love me. They will follow me for it. They will fight over me. They love me. And I'm also the boss of the barnyard if they don't behave. They know that, don't they? They know. To the hostess of the restaurant, I'm a guest. To the server, I am the wife to the man who leaves a really nice tip if they do good stuff. To my husband, I'm his wife. I'm his confidant. I'm his nurse, his secretary, personal food service director. I was his road navigator before GPS. I'm an expert. I've been there, done that. And you know, I am a diverse person with many personalities. It does not mean that I'm schizophrenic, schizophrenic. Doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that I am weird. It doesn't mean anything goes wrong with me, anything at all. It just means that those people that I meet in any given day, we have a relationship based on the amount of time I spend with them, what is the need, and all of that little scenario. So like with my girls, I'm the mom. I raise them. They have seen me on my worst days. They've seen me cry. They've seen me laugh. They have helped me through some hard times. My husband, you know, he knows every little mole on my body. And nobody else does, not even my doctors. Anyway, so here's the thing. There's only one me. And I have multiple things I do in a day based on who I'm there. But what happens if I were to walk up to the cop and say, here you go, here's our mail for the day. Make sure you sort those checks out. Or what if at the restaurant I say, hey, I need 2 bags of grain? You know? Or what if I'm at the feed store and I say, hey, I need a burrito to go? You know, these are not going to work. These are going to look at me like, okay, now the concept is really weird. Now you really have a weird concept. So what if I walked up and I put eye drops in Kate's eyes? You know what I mean? She's going to go, Grandma. What if I walked up to my husband and went, scratchy, scratchy, puppy, puppy? Okay, so none of these relationships are any good with others. It's only the one that you're with. Okay, so now let me jump to my next, and hopefully I can bring this home. So if you know God, whatever your relationship with God is, maybe you have that relationship where you remember that there was this moment when God blew his breath and parted the waters. And maybe that's the God that is still prevalent. And in this room, I feel like it is, and I'll tell you something else. This is one of the reasons I think I was nervous to share this tonight, because I feel like, man, I'm not telling these guys nothing they don't already know. And there's nobody I can speak to here that needs to hear this. And I gotta tell you, and following that, come on. I walked up here, I was sitting right there the whole time going, oh, yeah, jeez, what am I gonna do now? I know, maybe I'll do tomorrow's lesson. No, he says, nope. Do it afraid. Do it anyway. So here I am. What if the God that you serve, you have forgotten that he can do other things? Maybe you're so focused on something that is in your life right now that you can't get past it. Yeah. That can be a mental. I'm telling you, can I share one? Okay, this is not planned, but I'm going to share this. My hardest thing that has been that that has caused me to almost go backwards in my concept of the power and the promise. Oh my gosh, this hit home. Because I got older, for one. And it's not just that I got older. In the midst of getting older, I lost my mom. And in the midst of losing my mom, there were some dynamics over the last few years that I went through and experienced that didn't turn out like I thought they were going to. It all ended well. I mean, it all ended up great, but it was a different ending to the story that I thought would happen. So there's not any negative in it, but because it is personal, I don't want to share the details. But being the person that I am, I began to doubt: did I do things I should be? Did I do it all? Did I do her good? Because I mean, I live states away, and it's really hard to do all the things you do, and it's that guilt thing that you pull on yourself. So I was guilting it a lot, and I was feeding the guilt. And then I had other people, other entities. I had those voices in the other 10. The other 10 were talking, oh man, you didn't do that, you should have did that. Remember that day? Oh my gosh. And I mean, I had all these memories and all these voices, and they were all negative. And honestly, I woke up one day and I just had to say, I have to stop listening to all of that. And I have to focus back on what? Really what? And God started reminding me of all the good things He did, and all the wonderful things that happened. And I literally made a choice to stop living in, I want to go back to Egypt. I just want to go home and eat noodles. Whatever, you know? Because I became so focused on what I thought was my failure that I could not see God in His power. So when this all came up, see this moment that's happening right now, I didn't see it coming. But I said yes to this because I felt like God wanted me to. But let me bring it home. Because I think you guys get the idea of what I'm trying to say. There's other illustrations I can give, but it would only say the same thing from a different viewpoint. And that is, don't stop remembering what God has done for you. I love your testimony tonight. I love that. Please never forget that. And every time it comes back up, right back in its face. We got this. We can do this. That's what God wants to do. That's what God wants to do. So I brought you guys a present. It's not like a whole lot, but it was thoughtful. And I'm going to just give you guys these, and I'll let a couple of you ladies help me out. So these are names of God, in case you have forgotten who He is and what He can do for you. These are names of God, and depending on what you need today or who you are or what your focus is, one of these names is going to remind you that He is the God. He is. I am. I was, I am, and I'm going to always be. So you can read these names. I'm just going to read the ones that are, not the ones that are, the ones like the Elohim. Some of them I can pronounce. I'm just going to read the ones that what it means, okay? You can follow along, because I'll get there quicker if I just read that. So God He is the mighty creator. He is the God who sees me. He sees me. Do you know that? He sees you. I think we need to remember, in the midst of all of this mass chaos, I've got a real quick story about the barnyard that I'll share today, because I was trying to figure out where I'm going to fit it in. I'm going to put it in right now. So I'm in the barnyard. Kate has been developing all these pedigree things. And I'm not there as often as I was, so I'm not there every day. So she had brought in some of the goats and some sheep and some alpacas and Ferdinand, the regular. And I'm in there helping one morning. And so I come back, and 3 or 4 days later, and these little critters are making noise. And Kate and I, we can mimic all of them, and they're hilarious. I can't let you see my face. Okay, so if I get this wrong, you have to help me. Duncan is one of the little sheep. Is it Duncan? He goes, "Wah." That's his noise. Wah. I can't let you see my face because it could be horrible. But now the little goat, lightning, is like, right? And then Luke is more of a, help me out. Yeah. Okay. My last one will be alpacas, and they have a really strange little sound. Huh? The last one I was going to describe was the alpacas, and they're hilarious. And I don't know if I can do them, but it's kind of like, remind me, Kate. Hey, you know what? We can do it now, right? Come here, dog. No. Just kidding. Anyway, so what was really funny, why am I saying this? Because, like, I'm in the barnyard, I'm working with Kate, we own the animals. She knows their names, and she knows their sound. And she was telling me the first day I went in there, oh, that's Lupe. And I'm like, okay, good. After a few days that I'm in there, I start to notice, hey, Lynn, I know who that was. Because I'm in there, I'm spending time with them. There are little critters. And they're just little critters. But if God can give me that understanding and differentiation between these little critters, why can He not hear us? I mean, you might be going, wow. God's going to go, I hear you. I hear you. You might be that little, so when like, you need something, it's, but God hears that. And He says, I hear you. I know you're there. You're in my barnyard. I hear you. You're there. So read these names. Read these names. The God Almighty, the Sufficient One, the Ancient of Days, the Everlasting, the Eternal God, the Lord who will provide, the Lord I am, the self-existent one. He is your master. He's the Lord who heals. He is the Lord your banner. He is a consuming fire. He's a jealous God. The Lord, He is the Lord of peace. He's the Lord of hosts. He's the Lord of my rock. He's the Lord of my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I'm sorry. The name, He is my name. The name. My name shall be there. He is king. He is husband. There should have been like all their documents.
There's 2 pages.
Oh, did they not print on both sides? Okay, some of them did. Okay, everybody got both sides? Okay. Is there a copy machine anywhere near this facility? Not now. Is there a copy machine? I will give you, or you got a copy? So we can make sure. Okay, well, whoever needs it, come and ask me and we'll make sure that you get a copy of it. Anyway, it goes on and on. Because I want you to take these home with you. So that whenever you need to remember who God is and what He can do and why He loves you so much. Okay, speaking of why He loves you so much, one more little piece of this and then I'll be done. I heard that. I have to distinctly recognize your voice yet, but give me a minute. I hear you. I'm not like God. I don't know. Okay, how are you? Okay, part 3 of this and the end is now I'm going to turn this back around and say, okay, now that we understand a little bit about God and our concept of Him, I want to take just a few moments to remind you of His concept of you. Because like I just explained in the barnyard, He has a concept of you. His concept of you is so strong, if the names don't get you, I hope these will. So you are loved. I don't have this one as a handout, but I can get these for you if you want them. You are loved in Romans 8:38. I'm not going to read the verses because I know we're late. You are seen. He sees you. He is the God who sees me. In Luke 12:7, you are enough. You don't need no more. You don't gotta hop around and, oh! If God comes upon your body and you do that because the Spirit of God moves you, go with it, because you're not going to be able to stop it. And I believe in it. But you don't have to do that. There are churches you go to and it's like, come on, do the thing, woo, woo, do the thing. Do some, say habitat 14 times or whatever gimmick they have. I've had it happen. You are enough. You can't earn it anyway. Rest. Right now, take a breath. You are enough just right now who you are. You're a new creature. When you became His and you gave us your heart, you're a new creature. And that one is in 2 Corinthians 5:17. You are never alone. Never. I don't care if it's the middle of the night and you've got some heartache. I've been there many times. He is right there. He is that far, a breath away. That's in Matthew 28:20. You are forgiven. And I don't mean, I forgive you, you're really forgiven. He sent His Son. And she talked about it just now. The only one, thou art worthy. Thou art worthy. That's who He is. Psalms 86:5. You are original in Jeremiah 1:5, and you're unique in Jeremiah 1:5. And I'll read it to you right here. I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb, and I love that one. I love that one so much because it makes me know that even before I was born, God met with me in the womb. Had to. I could have been conceived. Just saying, He's already met with you on that moment. You are beautiful. Ecclesiastes 3:11. God made everything beautiful. You're a child of God. 1 John 3:1. I'll give these to you guys. I'll give them to you because I know you're not keeping up with me. It's okay. So when you feel like maybe you might be a little bit depressed, He's there. Where are you going to go? You can't escape God. He's everywhere. Romans 8:38, and I am convinced that nothing can ever separate you from God's love, neither death or life, angels or demons, neither our fears or for today or our worries about tomorrow, not even the powers of hell can separate you from God's love. And that one is in Romans 8:38. So whenever you feel anxiety, He's right there. He hasn't gone nowhere. He was right there when the people were murmuring for water. He was there whenever they were wanting food. He was right there the whole time. He was behind them, in front of them, and all around. And He was the provider. When you mess up and make a mistake, guess what? He's there. Especially there. Because He knows you need Him to be there. Whenever you doubt, He's there. Because we all doubt. If you feel weary, He's there. Here's one. If you feel unworthy, He's there. Especially. So it doesn't matter what you feel. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your social status is. It doesn't matter whether you need the person next to you or not tonight. God matters. You matter to God. Now, let me ask you one other thing. Now that we've spent this cherished time together, I asked you if you knew my name at the beginning of this evening, and you guys all shouted out in your horn. Can I ask one simple question and you just can shake your head yes or no? After hearing me talk, getting to know me a little bit, is your concept of me the same as it was an hour ago? And it's because I've gotten to know you a little bit, and when you know something, my concept of you guys has changed greatly too. Not just because of last year, but because of this evening. The worship, the interaction, there was a presence of God here that we don't always feel when we go places. But it's definitely here. And it's because of the bond, and you talk about bond, because what you guys are doing here, bonding, is what we need. God never wanted us to be an island to ourselves. Bonding with one another together and edifying each other. This is wonderful. This is what God wants. So I just want you to remember these things. First of all, your concept of God, please protect that. But it'll be you, not God. I just read it to you. Nothing can pull you. You can. If you let your mind start saying, God's kind of mad at me. Well, why would God be mad? What did you do? No, don't go there. Tell that one of those 10 spies to go away. You're not going to have it. Okay? So that's it. I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow a little bit about the barnyard. I'm going to give my personal testimony and share how these little horses really helped me and why I love them so much. Lord, thank you so much for this moment. I am amazed at what these ladies are and who they are and what they do, and small in number but powerful. I pray, Father God, that you would anoint these ladies. I pray that these ladies would go forth this day and walk through the parting of the sea, watching their enemies be washed behind them, and never forgetting all of the different names that we can call you on the times when we need them. So I pray, Lord God, in the name of Jesus, right now, that you would go with each lady as they go to their own place now, and give them the best night's rest ever, and help us to have an amazing day tomorrow. Amen. So that's it.
And yes, I do feel like I know you better. Okay, blessings to whoever's going to get up and turn on the coffee pot in the morning. I love you. I'm glad it's you and not me, but breakfast is at 7:38.